Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And we are back with Joe Frankie III. Excited to meet him. He's a mentor, he's a coach, an author, and so much more. So let me have you introduce yourself to our listeners today, please, Joe.
Sure, Jill. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. And so as far as I'm concerned, I grew up in the lower Rio Grande Valley, about 10 miles north of the Mexican border. Graduated from high school. A month later, I was in the Army. Wow. 4 years at the Academy, 30 years on active duty. Had a very successful career in the Army, and then have been active in the private sector for 20 plus years.
Wonderful. And here you are today now as an author, as a mentor, coach, and you're really inspiring people to perform at their peak level, because we all can, but sometimes we need a little extra guidance with that, right?
Yeah, what I found, Jill, is that most people are under merchandised. In other words, they bring so much more to the table than what is on, say, their LinkedIn profile and or in their resume. Each of those has a distinct function and place in the world. And I try to help people get their very best out there.
Great. Well, let's talk specifically to start in regards to the website. How can we reach out to you?
My website is JFIII Associates.com. That's JF3, but in computer language, that's III.
Got it. Perfect. So JFIII Associates.com. You say gain an edge with our LinkedIn 5-minute drill. You do consulting. You're working as a keynote, as a public speaker. There's so much that you do. Where did you want to start today?
Well, I want to start by encouraging people, especially in the post-pandemic world. There is a lot of change. Okay. And so if there is change, there's opportunity. But to gain that opportunity, you have to have your ears open and be willing to think in a slightly different way. And I've found in working with people over the last 6 years, and what I found was when I was working with executives, they know how to run a company or run their function and all that kind of stuff, but a lot of them don't know how to merchandise themselves to get to the next thing they want to do. And it's much like fishing. You know, you can put filet mignon out there on the hook and it really tastes good to you, but that's not what the fish is into.
True. Very true. Teach us.
And a lot of people kind of think that way. You got to give the fish what the fish wants.
And let's talk specifically about the types of people that you're working with, because anyone out there owning a business, starting a business, individuals, corporations, would you mind telling us a little bit more about the clientele, or it's anyone that wants to better themselves?
Well, what I have ended up working with is the whole continuum, all the way from 15-year-olds trying to figure out how to get into a extremely private high school, all the way to 84-year-olds trying to get back in the workforce. Mm-hmm. But the bulk of it, you know, the hump in that big curve is really 40-plus-year-olds trying to figure out what's next.
Oh, wow.
Because once you get up to around 40, 45, I mean, yep, nobody's chasing you anymore.
True. Yeah, I'm 44. So, I get it.
So you have to be as sharp as a razor blade as far as merchandising yourself. And you have to be ready in this environment 24/7, 365, because you never know when things will happen that you did not plan on.
Yeah. And some of those things in particular, I think we can learn. Could you talk a little bit about your books?
Sure. Lori Ruff, and she is another thought leader on LinkedIn. She and I co-authored the book. And I think the book gives a great perspective because you've got a woman's perspective in there, and you've got kind of the military engineer, approach to things. And, it wasn't easy to do.
Yeah.
And, but it was a great learning experience for me. I mean, we wrote it on Google Docs Saturday mornings from 10 to 12 for
Oh,
a
wow.
long time. But what happened is after the first 300 people I coached, everybody was saying, Joe, do you have a pamphlet? Do you have an ebook? Do you have this? And when I was talking to Lori Ruff, because I used her book that she wrote with Mike O'Neill as the best primer on LinkedIn, and she said, well, let's put this together and let's make it short and sweet. So the book is only an hour long. It's a 69-minute certified read. And I wanted it to be where somebody had to get on an airplane at the end of an hour, they'd fill their tank and could take action if they wanted to. And there's lots of pointers and references to other resources, in the back of the book.
Great. And where can we get a copy?
You can get a copy on any online bookseller, all the independents, Amazon, Books a Million, even Target Online for that matter.
Impressive. All right. This is exciting, the work you do. And you mentioned 15-year-olds. That's the youngest clients you work with, about 15?
Right.
Amazing.
That's kind of out there. I had coached their one of their parents, and we decided to experiment. And I really can't say more than that because she's a minor.
No, I got it. All right. So what is it you're helping corporations find leaders, find young talent. Give us some of the tips, the tricks, the trades. I mean, what is it? What does it take? What are some of the things? I feel that society is just very different. I have a 5 and 7-year-old, but I also have nieces and nephews that are teenagers, and they're just very different. This thing called the cell phone, the iPad, the gaming, it's way too much. And I feel like it's affecting their brain and creativity and how they are, their work ethic in a sense. So tell me your take on that too, if you don't mind.
Well, what I like to say is you're in a noun and verb war with your peers. So it's all about telling the story that you solve problems. Mm-hmm. When somebody calls a 40-plus-year-old up and wants to know whether they can do something, they're not interested in their skills. Mm-hmm. What they're interested in, hey, can you work with a team, and do you have a demonstrated capability of solving problems? Mm-hmm. And your ability to articulate that is key. And what LinkedIn has given you is the ability to tell story after story that, you solve problems. And the way that I find people for my clients is I just run, 10 keyword searches on LinkedIn until I get the kind of the first whack at that, change those words up, run another search and see who's coming up in the top 40 or 50 and narrow that down to 15 and start calling them and narrow that down to 7.
Wow. And in particular, did you want to go over some of the types of programs, what you're working on? I don't know what you had in mind for us. I don't have any specific notes for you. Sometimes people send them. So I just want to make sure we're covering everything that's important to you. So we get to know you, your business, and of course, recruit some people out there who could use your help.
Yeah. So what I've done is I've coached 688 people to date in the last 6 years.
Wow.
Professionally, and thousands before that. And what happened for me is when I was doing executive search, executive recruiting, I was always helping people with their resumes and their LinkedIn profiles. And, I just figured, okay, that's how you, pass it on, right? Try to help people get what they want. And so the people that I was helping seemed to get interviews. And so the word got out, and I was starting to get phone calls at 6 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night. And my wife said, go back to your day job, or find a way to make a business out of this. And I said, well, why do you think I should do that? My wife said, well, I'm listening to you talk to these people and you sound like you're developing officers in
Uh-huh.
the Army. And so then it was a big blinding flash of the obvious, right?
Yeah.
All I've done all my life is mentor and coach people to get them to the next school, help them get their next assignment, make sure that they were qualified for promotion and, help them move into a different sector. And so that's just kind of a natural extension of what I've done all my life. And evidently a lot of people think I'm pretty good at it.
Mm-hmm. Clearly you are. You work with so many people and what you're doing on a daily basis. How does it work? How many times a week you're meeting? Is there a specific program that you offer? How many months does it take to instill a change in someone
So what I do is, for the most part, everybody's a little different, but kind of the big part of it is I'll work with a person for anywhere from the first 3 hours, right? And I've had people take it faster than I can almost say it, and then other people that take a little longer. But the first hour, I got to turn your head inside out.
Okay.
You have to see the world in a different way. And once you see the world in a different way, then we talk about, okay, here's what LinkedIn has. This is what its advantages are. Here's where to hang the content that's important to what you want. Because we always start out is, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And where are you at? We got to define those 2 points. And if we can, then there's a way to help them engineer a LinkedIn profile to get them from where they are now
Yeah.
to where they want to go. Now, sometimes that says, okay, based on where you want to go, you need 2 more years of college. And this is the area that you need. Sometimes they need certain certifications, whatever they need. But a lot of people already have it. They just haven't merchandised it in a way that people can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it, if you can't be found, you can't be reviewed or seen. If you can't be seen, no one's going to call you.
Yeah. That's true. So it's about exposure,
Right.
self-promotion.
And
How,
branding.
branding, that's the word. Tell me about branding and the importance of it.
Well, the branding is critical. It's who you are and really kind of what you bring to the table. And the only way that can be done is through storytelling.
Yeah.
And so what happens is most people use LinkedIn like the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and usually just the top half above the fold.
Yeah.
But what LinkedIn offers you is the full Wall Street Journal, pages 2 through 9, the financial section, the op-ed section, and all that kind of stuff. So there's all these other places you can use to hang really good content about you and what you bring to the table.
Okay.
So LinkedIn, unlike a resume, gives you the ability to merchandise your emotional intelligence. And when you think about it, what the traditional interview did is everybody's qualified intellectually going into a traditional interview. And it's the emotional sale that, where one person gets picked amongst the 5. Because there's a connection, there's something that happens. And the resume does not give you the ability to merchandise that, but a LinkedIn profile does.
Okay. And do you help people rewrite their LinkedIn pages in a sense?
Well, I always tell them, I
Or
said, look, if you're working with me, you're signing up to a lot of hard work.
mm-hmm.
And so, I always say, if you're not into the work part of it, then, think again, because I can't get inside your head and I don't know your stories, but you know your stories.
True.
Okay. And so what I help them do is tweak those stories, show them how that could benefit them, the things that's most important to them, where you need to position that and all of that kind of stuff. But you the individual is the content creator and they're the content repository. They're the library of their lives.
Yeah.
So I don't really believe any other third person can write better than the individual, and sometimes they need some coaching and they need some time. But I always tell them it's like doing a term paper on yourself.
Oh, yeah.
But you've got to go through the same mechanism, because everybody wants to tell me, well, Joe, I'm going to sit down this weekend and, I'm going to knock it out. And I said,
Okay.
I said, we all wrote term papers that we did the night before, and we all got grades like we did them the night before.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So, I mean, it's about you and getting what you want. Are you willing to work for it?
Wow. Do you have any specific strategies? Anything that you want to share with us specifically about your process and, what's so unique
Mine is
about it?
mine is highly individual. I don't think I've coached the same way twice in 688 times, because it's all dependent on what the person wants. It's not what I want. Is okay, what is it you want? And let's populate the content that supports, what the people are looking for
Yeah.
to find you for what you bring to the table. In fact, what I'd say is most people are hidden. And then people say, well, Joe, why do I need to do that? And I said, because more and more of the positions that you want, especially when you get up past 35, they're all hidden searches. In other words, they're given to a contract recruiter, a internal HR recruiter, a
Wow.
retained executive recruiter, a contingent recruiter. And so all these people are working on these searches. So the job's not published unless you have some inside, contact. So that means those people are using LinkedIn as a tool to go find the people. So if you're not present and you don't come up in those LinkedIn searches, it's kind of hard for you to get the phone call. Now, that doesn't trump any kind of personal relationship. You're already vetted, you got all that kind of stuff. I mean, that works. That's worked since the beginning of time, and it will work till the end of time.
Yeah.
But what LinkedIn has given you is the exponential capability to be out there. In other words, if you have a LinkedIn profile, you're going to a virtual coffee meeting 37 times a day.
Now, what do you think about other social media platforms as well? I mean, LinkedIn clearly for business, but what about, I know you're on Facebook, right? You're on Twitter. Those different modalities, how are they helping?
Those are different modalities, and depending on what you do, they might even be a little bit better for you. But my focus is in the business world, kind of the no fluff stuff. And now I'm out there on Facebook, but it's really usually to take the content that I publish on LinkedIn and just put it in a different venue so that it can be seen. And the same thing is what I do on Twitter. So I wouldn't say I'm an active Facebook person or an active Twitter person, but I do make sure my content gets on Facebook and Twitter.
Great. Well, and the importance of LinkedIn now, how critical, I mean, because I have a LinkedIn page, I haven't used it in eons, right? But this is the way of the world. This is how everyone's communicating and even messaging on it. So with your book, with your expertise with LinkedIn, is there anything out there on the market that compares to it, or it's all about LinkedIn?
I think, right, 2 people join LinkedIn every second.
Really?
Yes. And those numbers are at least 6 months old when I last reviewed them. So that they're gathering millions of people every so many days. So the question is, can LinkedIn, continue to, handle it? But, they're owned by Microsoft. And so when they've seen something out there that would really benefit, I mean, they just go buy it. So now LinkedIn is in the education platform.
Wow.
As well. I mean, you can get certifications on LinkedIn. You can have your skills measured and tested on LinkedIn.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And
So it's headed to, okay, word is work going, the whole work recruiting, all that stuff. And it seems to me that when they have a near term potential competitor, they can take that startup and pay a couple of billion for it and add the expertise.
Wow. And you're doing also speaking, training classes for corporations. Could you share a little bit about that side of your work as
Well,
well?
so what I'm doing is I'm coaching on leadership. Naturally, I have a lot of leadership ability in helping companies with project management, really untangling problems. So that's what I did in the Army. When you get to be a senior leader in the Army, especially in logistics, you're just untangling bigger and bigger problems. And a lot of problems deal with the interface of people. It's really not a technical thing, but you get sorted out okay, somebody's not communicating with somebody else, this is slowing this down, that slowing that down. So I call it untangling, but I do enjoy that. And I'm at that, stage in my life where I have the expertise, the bandwidth and the depth. And so it's just a lot of fun helping other people solve problems, whether they're individual or collective, for the company, or coaching C-level people, trying to make them better leaders in that particular company.
Now, how did the pandemic affect you and your clients? People lost their jobs, lost lives. There was so much chaos, but a lot of us had to learn to reinvent the wheel and reinvent yourself. Hence, I'm assuming LinkedIn even went up and up and up, right? Like everything
But
was virtual online.
yeah. So what happened is all the people that thought they were pretty much set, right? They haven't monkeyed. They got this thing called a LinkedIn profile 6 or 7 years ago. They just add, the new company names on there and say 2 sentences about what they're doing. And, all those people that all of a sudden were out of work really had, some immense research to do. Okay, what did you do back at that company? What were the quantitative metrics?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't measure your production, I can't sell you to somebody else. Because hey, I'm a great gal, I'm a great guy, you got a lot of experience in this. Okay, well, how much experience? And I had a project manager call me one time and said, Joe, I'm a world-class project manager. And I said, well, let me look at your profile. And I said, well, you've convinced me that you are.
Yeah.
Like every other person on the planet, you haven't convinced at all. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you're a project manager, but you've never done any projects.
Good
He said, what do you
point.
mean? He said, well, I work with so-and-so, it's a world-class company, and I've done these. I said, what you need is something like, hey, I'm a project manager. I've completed 27 major projects in the last 14 years with project teams of 12 to 27 people, valued from $2.1 million to
Uh-huh.
$1.3 billion. And the projects were finished under budget and on time. Now that is measuring your production.
Interesting. And it's all about the verbalization and how you say it. And a lot of people don't have those techniques, and it's
Well,
important to
you don't
learn.
need those techniques in normal conversation because you're face to face, and your emotional antenna will assess appropriately what's going on. But when you're uh, in a content fight to get a job and nobody's going to direct, you're not coming in to speak for yourself, then hey, LinkedIn or whatever you're communicating with has to speak for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And you know, people will always say, well, Joe, I don't want to brag. And I said, well, it's not bragging if you've done it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a Dizzy Dean quote. He was a old pitcher, the bane of English teachers, because he was on the radio. It ain't bragging if you've done it.
I love it. Oh, okay. We got 3 minutes left. Holy cow. Time goes quick. What else do we need to know about you?
Oh, I do a lot of volunteer work. Naturally, as a veteran, I try to work with various veterans organizations and help them out. And I really learned how to use LinkedIn by helping veterans. I got onto LinkedIn back in 2004, which is right after they got on it. So, I've been out here almost 18 years using the platform. And what I did, it wasn't around when I got out of the military. And so it was just very, very hard for me to matriculate into the private sector because there wasn't this way of telling your story. In other words, you still had to read the newspaper, apply for positions, go to recruiters, knock on the door, hand them your resume. And so this whole process has really gotten simpler and easier. But, you've got to learn how to populate your content so that, you can do it. And so what the challenge I had with military people is you have to take what they did in the military and translate that into a vernacular that hiring managers understand.
Got it. Now, if we want to reach out to you, do you offer an initial consultation? How does this process work?
Yeah, I talk to anybody over the phone and, explain, what I do. So I have a calendar out there. I do 15-minute, what I call connection calls where, I like connecting with people on LinkedIn, but I want to make sure, that you're the real person too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So how do we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Joe Frankie III, is my LinkedIn name.
Perfect.
And people say, well, Joe, what do you do? And I just say, go Google Joe Frankie III. And
Perfect.
There's 3 pages of content, what I do, where I've done it, talks, a lot of podcasts out there. So
I know. Yep, absolutely. There is. Clearly, we're on one now live. So I'd say website is the best thing, right?
Yeah, at least you know what it's about. You know the book. If you get the book in 1 hour, who doesn't have an hour to find out how to take a look at something?
Perfect. Sounds
It's the
good.
hardest thing that I have ever done was write a 1 hour book.
Wow. All those sessions, right? 2
Well,
hours each.
it's going through 173 pages of content on the
Wow.
cutting room floor.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Pleasure having you here, getting to know you. Thank you for enlightening us and helping so many people. And you got me thinking about LinkedIn now and what I need to update and do. Looking forward to the next time we speak. You have a great day. Okay.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners and viewers, stay tuned. More of the show is on the way.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.